Your comprehension of this Bruce Lee directive shouldn't be as elusive, let's call it, as the famous "Be water, my friend." Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, and welcome to the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast number 264. This is the one about interpreting Bruce Lee's instructions. As you're logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the broadcast. If you are catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. If you enjoy my work and you'd like to support the program, please visit jkdrebel.com, click on the Rebel Gear link, and that's where you'll see stuff like this, the Unified Martial Art Academy Kali JKD Vintage Edition. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the I Love Jeet Kune broadcasts. So let me start with this. I'm going to read you something from October 20th, 1964. It's a letter from Bruce Lee to his Wing Chun, Sihing, William Chung. Nowadays, I indulge myself in reading and Kung Fu practice. I am staying with a fellow who is also a nut in the Chinese art. And together, we practice 2 hours a day. We have a nice gym built in the garage, and my wooden dummy is set up. My partner has also built 2 other dummies that prove to be of much use to Wing Chun form and method. We are in the process of completing some protective equipment for actual sparring without pulling punches. So I read you that so that you kind of start to get an idea of the atmosphere at the Oakland Kung Fu Institute at the time. Now, the quote from August 1965, a letter to James Lee, not quite a year later, but this is what sparked the whole discussion. Make use of the wooden dummy and equipment available at our Shaolin Temple gym. It will be a challenge to you to create ways and means to better the training method. Use karate, judo, aikido, or any style to build your counteroffensive. It will be interesting. So that was the ending part of a letter on a suggested Kung Fu training program for class instruction for the little garage group. In the preceding paragraphs, Bruce Lee had given James Lee recommendations on warm-ups, on kicking and punching, and on technique training. All right. Let's see. This is what he said immediately before. All right. Regarding technique, he said, as used before or any sensible move you can choose. So I've said this many times, but it warrants repeating here as well. If we're going to analyze Bruce Lee's words, we have to do so in the context of what he was trying to convey at the time that he said it. Okay? You got that? Do I need to say it again? So Bruce Lee is advising James Lee on how to develop and design training for the Oakland Garage Group. That's the context. Here are some of the lines along which our discussion evolved. One, the idea that this is evidence that Bruce Lee was advocating beyond Wing Chun and boxing. But remember, this is a 1965 letter, okay? That this admonition is I call it the authorizing forerunner of the latter-day JKD approach of studying different arts, the authorizing forerunner. Or another line was that Bruce Lee was advising James Lee, and I'm going to quote my good friend Andy Wilson here. Bruce Lee was advising James Lee to research these arts, this karate, judo, aikido, and others, and to be creative in building out his tool set. Interesting. Then all of a sudden, the discussion took like a 2 decades leap into the 1980s and became a thing about whether or not there's any legitimacy to the claim that Bruce Lee trained in other arts solely to learn how to counter them and not to glean anything from them, technique or skill wise. Well, what do we know for sure about Bruce Lee's approach to other arts? And I word it that way because essentially what we can only know for sure if we have record of him saying something, right? We're writing something too, but if he said something. So what do we know for sure? One, he didn't believe that there were huge differences in techniques because all these different styles were practiced by humans with the same basic anatomical structure, right? Now, what have we heard? We've heard that you would show him a technique and in a few days, he'd be doing it as well or even better than a lot of people who had been doing it for a much longer time. And also that sometimes he would have developed a bunch of drills to train the technique, correct? We've heard that. Have you heard this? It's a quote attributed to to James Lee, sorry. And it says, "We have the skeleton key to open other systems and styles, but they have no key to open ours." Now, why do you think James Lee would say something like that? What kind of thinking creates this statement? So, while I don't wholeheartedly agree with the idea that Bruce Lee looked at other arts solely and only to learn how to counter them, I don't think that's true at all. That is an aspect of looking at other arts, but that's not the only reason to look at other arts. I do think that in this 1965 context, he was simply saying to James Lee, look at what others are doing and keep in mind what they're doing as you develop your training ideas. There's no way in 1965 that Bruce Lee was suggesting to James Lee that he go train with other people. They didn't really do that. They did use whatever materials or information they had access to, probably mostly books, and they built from there. Think about this. Who did Bruce Lee ever go to in order to research an art? I don't know of Bruce Lee going to train with anybody, no matter what Jean LaBelle, bless his heart, might have said. All right. Conversely, people came to him. Now, understand this. I am not at all saying that years later, as the martial arts world became more open-minded, largely due, I would say, to Bruce Lee's influence and to the influence and the work of many of his followers, if the opportunity to go deep into an art presented itself, of course, you should take that opportunity. But that was not the 1965 situation. At that time, if Bruce Lee saw something that he think he could make work, it was brought into his method, the Jun Fan method, and modified, if necessary, to conform with that Jun Fan methodology. But in 65, he's in Hong Kong, and he had left James Lee in charge. And so he was essentially coaching James Lee on how to continue to develop training ideas for the Oakland group. Perhaps not even coaching him or advising him on what James Lee himself needed to be doing for his own personal development. In 65, we weren't yet there in the Jeet Kune world. But certainly, I'll finish with this. Certainly, this can be looked at as the seed of something that came later. And who's to say that it's not an indicator of a direction in which Bruce Lee himself might have gone? And that's my riff for today. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. That's all I got to say about this video. If you like what you heard, comment, rate, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. At paypal.me/unifiedma Miami. The Jeet Kune Journey Volume 1, raw but edited version is available. paypal.me/unifiedma Miami. Coming up on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. California time, we'll be hanging out on the Jeet Kune Dialogues with none other than Sifu Tim Tackett. All right. And thank you very much to all of you who have already sent in your questions for Sifu Tim. And I just lost my display for some reason. All right. Anyhow, let me make sure that I'm not messing myself up here. Okay. All right. My screen went blank for a second. All right. So come hang out with Sifu Tim and me at 6 o'clock on Friday. Today's a blue day. That's where we go with this. And I'll see some of you on Friday. If not, I'll see you next week for another issue of the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast. Until then, I look forward to your comments on this one for real. Until then, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, signing off. You guys be safe. Take care. Talk soon.